Yes, your popcorn. Do you want a brother or a sister?
Sister.
You want a little sister?
Yeah.
You want to be a big sister?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Go, Cece. Go, Bella. Careful, Cece. You're going to get dizzy. You're going to get dizzy, Cece. You're going to get dizzy. Blow on it, Cece. No, don't let her touch the plate. No, 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 no. Blow on it, Cece. Okay, look. Blow. Cece, blow. Say hi, Cece. Hi. Look at this monster. This is what I deal with. Like, she's a monster. Don't you jump off the couch. Oh. I'm sitting right here, Mama. She's a monster. Like, she doesn't stop. Like, seriously, this kid hasn't napped today. No, don't stay on my legs, baby. My life. You want more cereal?
Yeah, I wipe it.
I'll wipe it.
It's boo-boo.
It's a boo-boo. Cece, are you hungry? Celeste. Hey, are you hungry?
Yeah.
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 It was a quiet morning in Wisconsin when detectives entered the stark visiting room of Dodge Correctional Institution. Chris sat waiting, hands folded, face calm. Too calm for a man carrying what he was about to say. It had been months since his arrest, months since the world had called him a monster. But now, in this cold, fluorescent-lit room, he was ready to tell them everything, or so he said. The investigator's recorder clicked on. And in a chilling voice devoid of emotion, Chris began to recount the night of August 13th, 2018. He spoke about Sean and about the argument, the rage, and the moment everything went dark. But when detectives thought they'd heard the worst of it, he said something that froze them in their seats. "I had to kill my daughters twice," he whispered. "Not once." At first, they didn't understand. How could that even be possible? But as he continued, the horror became clear. After smothering his daughters, he thought they were gone. But when he loaded their small bodies into the truck, one of them, little Bella, woke up. She looked at her father, terrified, and asked, "What's wrong with Cece?" The silence that followed was unbearable. Chris described how Bella, weak and confused, begged for her life as he ended it a second time. He told the story like a man recalling a nightmare, one he couldn't wake up from, yet never seemed fully sorry for. And then, as if to twist the knife even deeper, he said that someone had once called him a hero, someone who told him he was brave for being honest. Don't forget to share, and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime for the next chapter, where we uncover who called him that and why. Not long after Chris Watts's confession spread through the media, a curious development emerged from the flood of letters pouring into Dodge Correctional Institution. While the world recoiled from his monstrous crimes, a few strangers saw something different, something disturbingly sympathetic. Among them was one woman whose letters quickly became the talk of the prison staff. She wrote to him daily, telling him he was misunderstood, that she believed his moment of darkness didn't define him. Her words painted him as a lost soul, not a killer. She even referred to him as her hero, not because of what he'd done, but because, in her mind, he had the strength to face it. She claimed she saw goodness in him. She told him that his faith, his calmness, and his ability to take responsibility were signs of redemption. To most people, this would sound twisted, but to Chris, locked in isolation, those words became oxygen. Prison sources say he read her letters over and over, underlining her phrases, whispering her name like a mantra. She sent Bible verses, family photos, even perfume-sprayed pages, trying to reach what she called the soul beneath the sin. But when reporters later uncovered her identity, the story took a darker turn. She wasn't just another fan obsessed with a notorious killer. She was a former correctional counselor, someone who, by all professional standards, should have known better. She once told a friend that she didn't see a murderer, just a man who lost control. And Chris? He told investigators she was the first person who made him feel human again. For most, the name Chris Watts conjures horror. A father who destroyed his family in a night of unspeakable cruelty. But behind prison walls, something strange was unfolding. A web of fascination, sympathy, and dangerous affection. The woman who called him her hero wasn't alone. Inmates whispered that Chris was receiving letters from dozens of women around the country. Women who claimed they felt a connection with him. Some wrote that they wanted to marry him. Others described him as handsome, misunderstood, or even chosen by God. One letter, seized by prison staff, read, "I believe in your redemption, Chris. You remind me that even sinners can become saints." This wasn't the first time a convicted murderer had become the object of obsession. But with Chris, it was different. His outward calm, his soft-spoken demeanor, and his religious transformation painted a portrait that some women romanticized, erasing the brutality beneath it. Psychologists call it Hybristophilia, a disorder where people become attracted to those who commit violent crimes. To them, men like Chris are powerful, mysterious, and broken, someone they believe they can fix. But the truth is far darker. These relationships often feed the killer's ego, allowing them to rewrite their story, to play the victim rather than the villain. And Chris, who once claimed he felt dead inside, began to crave that attention. He started responding to selected letters, carefully choosing who he'd write back to, mostly the ones who saw him as redeemable. And in those exchanges, a chilling dynamic was reborn. Control, deception, and manipulation, disguised as affection. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime, because in Chapter 4, we uncover how this dangerous admiration turned into something far more disturbing. By the spring of 2022, Chris Watts's story had already faded from the front pages, but inside Dodge Correctional Institution, his name still carried a strange power. The letters kept coming, hundreds of them, some filled with prayers, others with fantasies too graphic to print. But one woman stood apart. The same woman who'd called him her hero had taken her obsession to another level. According to reports later leaked by prison staff, she began sending money to Chris's commissary, funding his books, snacks, and even personal care items. In one note, she wrote, "I want to take care of you the way no one else did." Soon, her tone shifted. The letters weren't just affectionate anymore. They were possessive. She warned Chris not to write to anyone else, claiming that God had brought them together for a reason. Guards noticed his behavior changing, too. He'd once been quiet and detached, but now he seemed more alert, more invested in the outside world. He told another inmate that someone special was waiting for him, and that maybe, one day, God would grant him freedom. Then came the breaking point. The woman allegedly drove to Colorado, visiting the neighborhood where the Watts family home once stood. She took photos, left flowers on the front lawn, and even posted online about reclaiming the place of tragedy. Her posts drew outrage and deep concern from investigators who feared she was slipping into delusion. But when confronted, she defended her actions, saying, "He's been punished enough. I just want to show him love." The devotion had crossed into danger, and for Chris it was exactly the attention he craved. As weeks turned into months, the woman's devotion deepened into something darker, an obsession that blurred the line between love and insanity. She began referring to herself as Mrs. Watts in online forums dedicated to defending Chris, claiming that she alone understood the real man behind the crime. Her posts spoke of forgiveness, divine purpose, and second chances. But those who followed her noticed a chilling shift in tone. She started hinting that Sean and Chris's murdered wife had provoked what happened, echoing old, debunked claims that had once circulated in dark corners of the internet. To many, it felt like history repeating itself. Another woman manipulated by the same quiet charm that once fooled the world. But the truth was even more unsettling. She wasn't just repeating his story. She was helping him rewrite it. In letters later leaked from prison, Chris began reflecting her words back to her. He wrote about spiritual cleansing, about being reborn, and about a family waiting in heaven. In one line, he wrote, "You see me as they never did, not as a monster, but as a man who fell and was lifted by love." It was a dangerous exchange, a murderer finding comfort in adoration, and a follower finding purpose in his sins. Psychologists who analyzed the letters said the pair had built a fantasy world where guilt didn't exist, only grace. But that fantasy couldn't last, because deep down, Chris knew redemption wasn't his to write. And for those who still mourned Sean and Bella and Celeste, the idea that anyone could call him a hero was unbearable. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime. In Chapter 6, we uncover how their disturbing bond finally came to light and the shocking consequence that followed. The illusion shattered in the summer of 2023. A former inmate, recently released, sold a collection of handwritten letters that Chris Watts had sent from prison, and buried within them were the very messages exchanged with the woman who called him her hero. The letters painted a disturbing picture of emotional manipulation. Chris thanked her for her faith, praised her devotion, and promised that when he finally met her in God's time, they would live in peace, far from judgment. But there was more. In one particularly chilling passage, Chris wrote, "You remind me of Bella. She believed in me even when the world didn't." That single line made readers sick to their stomachs. Comparing a fan to his murdered daughter wasn't just delusional, it was monstrous. When the letters leaked online, outrage exploded. Victims' advocates condemned both the correspondence and the woman's obsession. Shanann's family, still trying to rebuild their lives, called it a disgusting mockery of the truth. The woman, now exposed, insisted she never meant harm. She claimed she was only trying to help Chris find God. But by then, the damage was done. The story went viral, sparking debates about the psychological pull killers like Chris hold over certain people. A dangerous cocktail of power, control, and the human need to redeem what should never be forgiven. Behind bars, Chris was ordered to end all outside correspondence except with family. His privileges were restricted, and his fan club began to fade. But even then, one guard later said he found Chris smiling in his cell, staring at the wall as if he could still hear her voice. In early 2024, months after the scandal of the leaked letters, the prison mailroom intercepted one final piece of correspondence from Chris Watts. Unlike the others, this one wasn't written to a fan, a pastor, or a pen pal. It was addressed simply, "To whoever still believes." The letter was brief, barely 2 pages, but what it contained sent shivers through everyone who read it. "I know the world hates me," it began, "but hate doesn't erase the truth. What I did can never be undone. I took their lives, and then I had to take them again. My girls didn't die once. They died twice. once in their bodies and once in the stories people tell about them. It was the first time Chris acknowledged the full horror of what he'd done. Yet, halfway down the page, his tone shifted from guilt to justification. But she, he wrote, saw something in me that no one else did. She called me her hero. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe she wasn't. But she gave me peace, and that's more than I deserve. The letter ended with a haunting final line. If forgiveness is real, then I'll see them again, and they'll know I loved them, even when I didn't know how. When the note was made public, it reignited fury. To some, it sounded like remorse. To others, it was another manipulation, a calculated attempt to twist sympathy out of tragedy. But one thing was undeniable. Even from behind bars, Chris Watts still had the power to disturb, to unsettle, and to make the world question whether monsters ever truly feel sorry. In the years since his unimaginable crimes, Chris Watts has become more than a headline. He's a mirror reflecting the darkest sides of human nature. Behind bars, he now spends his days reading the Bible, attending chapel, and telling anyone who will listen that he's found peace through God. But for those who know the truth, peace is the last word they'd ever use. Every Sunday, Chris sits in the same seat during service, eyes closed, lips moving in prayer. Guards say he rarely looks up, as if he's afraid to meet the world's gaze. When asked once if he believed he'd been forgiven, he said softly, "I know they have. No one needed to ask who they were. To outsiders, it's a performance, an act to ease the unbearable weight of guilt. To others, it's delusion, a man trying to rewrite his legacy through repentance." But deep inside, even his fellow inmates know, Chris Watts isn't haunted by what he's done. He's haunted by what he still feels. In one chilling exchange, a chaplain later revealed, Chris whispered, "If they could see me now, they'd still call me Daddy." That single line, fragile, broken, and terrifyingly detached, summed up everything about him. Because the truth is, redemption doesn't belong to everyone. Some acts are too cruel, too calculated, too unforgivable. Chris Watts may have found faith in the shadows, but for the families left behind, forgiveness remains a wound that will never close. And as the prison lights dim each night, Chris still whispers prayers to the dark, hoping someone, somewhere, still calls him a hero. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime, where we expose the stories the world can't forget and the monsters that still hide behind human faces.